Hello and welcome to Allison and Latasha. I'm Megan Flatt and I am here to interview these two amazing people on some work that they have been doing and work that they have been evaluating during this pandemic, and that has to do with funding and childcare businesses. And I am so excited to have both of you here. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and what pronouns you use?
Great. Well, thanks so much, Megan. My name is Allison LaRocca, and my pronouns are she and her. And I am the managing director of Luminary Evaluation Group. Luminary has been around for about 5 years now. We are associated with Civitas Strategies, where I began my career as a management consultant, working with nonprofit organizations and mission-driven organizations to help them increase their impact. From that work, we began doing evaluations, working with nonprofits of every size, capacity, and budget who are interested in understanding and articulating and growing their impact. We work in the early childhood space, youth programming, education, child poverty, college and workforce readiness. My earliest years, I could be found in the elementary classroom. I taught third grade in Lawrence, Massachusetts for a number of years, which I feel is very much the foundation of my work as an evaluator. And we're just really driven to help organizations not just conduct evaluation, but to conduct them in a way that's really useful to their decision-making process, to growing their program, and to communicating their impact. So that's it about me.
So great. And we're going to dive into that a little more in just a bit. But Latasha, I would love to hear from you.
Sure. Hello, Megan. I'm happy to be here. I am Latasha DeVos, and I'm a senior consultant with Luminary Evaluation Group. So I work very closely with Allison, doing all of the amazing things that she said.
Excellent. So great to have you both here. So you just recently completed an evaluation for the federal stimulus funding for childcare businesses that were brought out during the pandemic. Obviously, a lot of business owners were really impacted by the pandemic. And so you were really looking at the impact that this federal stimulus funding had on childcare businesses in the state of New Jersey. And you uncovered some big wins. So let's start there. Tell me about some of the results that your evaluation was able to uncover.
Absolutely. So one of the major points of the evaluation was just the access to funding that through the technical assistance work that Civitas Strategies Early Start was doing. They were able to really help providers, childcare providers, both home-based and in centers, to access over $18 million in federal stimulus funding. This included about $10 million for the Employee Retention Tax Credit and $8 million for the Paycheck Protection Program loans. And what we found through our evaluation is that many of these providers would not have accessed this funding without the help of the technical assistance they received. And one of the reasons that technical assistance was so impactful was because of the level of trust that was built among the coaches, working with the CCR&Rs, working as a collective to really ensure that this money did not get left on the table, which was the case for so many providers across the country. So that was a pretty significant finding. The other thing we're able to do with this evaluation is take a look at childcare providers' taxes. And we were able to really do an analysis of how they were filing their taxes. I believe that we looked at about 60 of them. Latasha, correct me if that's incorrect. But
Yes.
and that is really the largest data set of its kind in the country to look at this work. And so I'll ask Latasha to speak a little bit about the tax preparation analysis that was done, because I think that was also another very significant finding as well.
Absolutely. And I think it was significant, and it's hard, right, to call it a win when we've uncovered some very eye-opening findings But it is a win in the fact that this can inform the sector at large and give a lot of data and offer that data-driven perspective on the financial status of childcare providers and opportunities to improve their financial standing through something as fundamental as annual taxes. So we were able to uncover areas where childcare providers, well, themes, I'll say, that we saw in the tax returns that led to some areas for missed opportunities, but also potential risks that childcare providers could be putting themselves at, and often inadvertently just through the lack of basic knowledge on how to prepare a tax return accurately.
So this is really something that's going to carry these businesses beyond the pandemic and beyond the use of these funding. Not only is that impactful, but the work you did around their tax preparation is going to help them for years to come.
For sure.
And I think too, the other wins that came from the report were really the recommendations about how to continue to think about and support the childcare industry and providers in the future. We found that childcare providers, especially those that are home-based, are often not viewed as small businesses by themselves and others. And that policy and advocacy groups should really be attuned to the laws and regulations and opportunities for small businesses and try to integrate them into wider policy efforts for childcare providers. The other important piece is, we took a careful look at childcare providers who are taking on debt during the pandemic. Many providers access the EIDL loan, which they're not really understanding that is actual debt that they are going to be responsible for paying back in the near future. And so helping them to understand that and build that awareness now is very critical. And then also, that there's more resources and educations necessary to ensure that their quality tax preparation is happening. As part of this report, we created a rubric. It's called the Confidence and Quality Tax Prep Rubric, and it is something that is freely available. We believe that every organization who's working with childcare providers on their business should be sharing this rubric with them so that when they are approaching their tax preparation for the coming season, that they are equipped with the knowledge about what quality preparation looks like, some of the items that they may want to bring to their preparer and ask them, are we doing this? And have that be that awareness that we saw as being so important throughout the evaluation, continuing to be pushed forward afterwards.
That's really incredible. And I think that really highlights, at Luminary, you really have kind of a unique approach to evaluation. You're talking about the importance of these recommendations. So you're not just looking backwards. You're not just analyzing these programs. You're really looking forwards too, and how can they continue to make improvements and make impact. So tell us a little more about the evaluation, the specific Luminary evaluation and methodology, and why is it? I mean, I think you just told us why it's so impactful, but explain a little more about the methodology.
Sure. So at Luminary Evaluation, we believe in participatory evaluation. And what that means is that we work with the stakeholders and the people who are doing the work, participating in the work, to really understand how to design the research effort, from the research questions to the protocols for interviewing and surveying, to doing the focus groups, even to the analysis of the data, asking them to, weigh in on what does this data mean, and put this into context for us, building the report and making sure that it's very useful for the organization, so that it isn't just where we kind of, come in, the evaluators and it's a scary thing. It's more that we're coming in, we're partnering with them and we're building this thing together, so that it's something that they can use and feel proud of. You know, we just finished an evaluation for the summer youth employment program out in Newark, New Jersey, and you know they're in the process now of taking the recommendations from the report and really putting them into practice and planning for their next year. And I can't think of a better example of what participatory evaluation really should be, because it just shows that, you know, it's using the data in a meaningful way in the near term, not so much that it's, you know, this large academic piece that's inaccessible for many, but that it's really driven by that management consulting approach.
I love that. Latasha, anything you want to add to just why you feel like the way Luminary approaches evaluations is unique?
I definitely agree with everything that Allison said. As a member of the evaluation team, I just truly enjoy the stories that we're able to capture and deliver to our clients from the perspective of their consumers. And that has been a new approach we've been taking lately and has been well received. It just puts a completely different spin on the data when you're hearing it from the words of the beneficiaries.
What I'm really hearing both of you say is that you really make this evaluation kind of a living, breathing, accessible tool that these businesses can use moving forward. They can, with the stories, they can really kind of hear and own what's going on with the evaluations and the recommendations. They can see how they can make an impact and how they can make changes moving forward. So it's not just something, I know, and we'll talk about this in a minute, I know sometimes evaluations, especially for nonprofits, are required for the funding or for whatever for part of the project are required, but you're really making it not just something that's like, okay, great, I have this, put this on the shelf, we checked the box. You're really making these evaluations something that they can use. The example you gave for the summer work program, something they can use to then make decisions in the future. That sounds really unique and really impactful. Yeah. So tell us a little bit about how that came to be then. How did you, you mentioned at the beginning that Luminary is kind of a subdivision of Civitas strategies. And so tell us a little bit about the background of Civitas and how Luminary came to be and why you realized that this approach to evaluation was really impactful.
Absolutely. So, you know, Luminary really came out of the work that Civitas Strategies was doing around strategy and advisement, because we found that our clients were needing evaluation either through funding requirements or because they really were trying to understand impact and communicate impact. And so as we became, you know, more versed in evaluation, we found that, you know, helping clients to look at the data that they have already, help them collect new data and help them to put it together and build that capacity to work with data was really important to them. And, you know, I think evaluation was something that was always, you know, seen as kind of out of reach for many organizations, especially small to mid-sized ones. And so by beginning the Luminary evaluation work portfolio, because that's really how it began, it grew out of the need for all of that evaluation work. It really helped us to serve that aspect for our clients. So I would say that it was really an outgrowth of Civitas Strategies and allowed us to form an organization that, you know, was able to be an independent voice for our clients and to really share those impact stories and areas for opportunity.
Yeah, that is great. Latasha, anything? I know that you were just saying how impactful the storytelling aspect of these reports are. Would you like to share any of the provider stories from this, the childcare business resiliency support evaluation that you did for these childcare providers in New Jersey? Any stories that stand out to you that you know really kind of resonate in your mind?
Yes, absolutely. And there were many. I get drawn into the interviews and truly captivated by the stories of providers. Often we want to know what made you get into the field, and you hear stories of just wanting to help others, wanting to be a pillar in the community, having their own families, but also fostering and opening up their homes to others. Just always been a trend in some of the backstories. And that was the case with this one particular home-based provider, where she just talked about her journey and how she wanted to shift once her child aged out of the home, left the nest, and she wanted, to give back and do something. So she was a self-starter and just researched everything she could about the childcare industry and became a licensed family childcare home. But it was a rough start, and she just talked about trying to navigate the business side. And that was one thing she appreciated receiving when she participated in the technical assistance component of this New Jersey Business Resiliency Project. And it was some things that most business owners would consider as like the fundamentals and the basics. But, she said they were able to break down payroll and how to do payroll with me. That was something near and dear, which she saw helpful. The method and the delivery of those business concepts were, for her level and just right for her. She also appreciated the human aspect of it. The TA specialists that she worked with, they wanted to know her, they wanted to hear her, they valued her as a person and not just, I have to get through this technical assistance call with you. It was like, no, what makes sense for your business? How are you doing this? How are you doing that? Do you understand it? How can we support you? And I think, just hearing her story and the impact was great. There was a silver lining to her story. Luckily, in her area, there's an initiative that is providing early Head Start services for family childcare homes. So because of that, she said, I do not have to worry about the enrollment, how I will enroll children, because through this initiative, they're actually enrolling the children for me. That is not something that most providers are in that situation, because enrollment is a big pain point, especially post and during the pandemic for many providers. But luckily, through her own business resiliency, she was able to seek out the networks and the opportunities available to her to join that network to help boost her business for years to come and take that big stress off her shoulder.
One of the things that I find so profound and that I love working with Civitas and Luminary is this kind of double impact and this kind of trickle down impact that you all have on the communities that you work in, because not only are you supporting these businesses or these nonprofits in different scenarios or these programs, but you're giving them the power to then make bigger impacts. And I think that is the work that you're doing is magnified and impacting more, which is obviously what nonprofits want to do, is they want to increase their impact. And so this childcare and this early start division has also been something that has come about, like Allison, like you were just explaining with Luminary. It kind of came out of a need that you all saw to support these businesses and these programs. That I really resonate with what you were saying about them not viewing themselves maybe as businesses. It's like, oh, I sometimes encounter that with some of my clients as well. They might say, oh, I'm a freelancer, I'm not a business owner, but really getting them to experience and embody what it means to be a business so they can make sure they're making appropriate tax decisions, accessing funding, accessing resource. So tell us just a little bit about this third branch, the Early Start, the Civitas Early Start program.
Absolutely. So Civitas Strategies Early Start was founded in 2021, and it was in reaction to the pandemic, but it really draws upon, the 16 years of early learning experience that the organization and the president and CEO Gary Romano have in the industry, and it combines expertise in business management with familiarity of childcare and early learning operations. And the focus of the organization is really on, building tools, information, and supports that can help to increase revenue and decrease costs for childcare. It's really been focused on developing goal-based approaches so that providers can get the support that they most need when they need it. So being very responsive to direct provider needs. And one of the important things about Early Start, Civitas Strategies Early Start, is it takes an open source approach. So materials are publicly available. Nothing is behind a paywall, and everything is available for any provider who wants to use it. At this point, Civitas Strategies Early Start is working across the country, primarily in Texas, Indiana, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and Virginia. And again, it's really about providing that one-on-one and group coaching based on topics to help providers quickly take action on the things that are going to impact them the most. And so I would say, examples of some of the work that and some of the information that Civitas Strategies Early Start has produced would be information on the EIDL loans, tools for understanding ERTC, employee retention tax credit, how to pay yourself. That's something that many providers are not actually doing, helping them to understand that, they are a business, that you need to pay yourself as if you were, an employee of that business, how to provide competitive pay and benefits for their staff, how to budget and make a cash flow. That's been a very popular topic that we've seen providers gravitate to. And so I think it's really just about, continuing to be a voice and a leader in the industry, to try to help people understand that these providers are businesses, that they have the ability to grow as business owners if they have the tools and awareness to help them do so.
I love that. Latasha, anything that you want to add there that you've seen over this last year as Civitas Strategies Early Start has formalized?
Yes, absolutely. And I'll say, having previously worked in support of childcare providers' business practices, prior to Civitas for a while, I can't believe almost a decade, these things were needed way before the pandemic, and it was a bit hard to articulate or even convince, the world at large, funders at large, of why it was so important for providers to understand some of these basics of business if the ultimate goal was to impact the quality of their programs. So I think that, the vulnerabilities that the pandemic certainly pulled that cover over has been a great vehicle for Civitas Strategies Early Start to do this great work that will have tremendous benefit well beyond the pandemic. The things that we're working on with providers, like Allison mentioned, have been impactful for their businesses and easily digestible for them. And I appreciate, we're able to talk about things like budget and cash flow, but we're also providing real life examples to providers so that they understand, why this is important in terms of just paying your bills and being less stressed in the midst of all the things you have to do, and just really how does this impact your financial stability for the future.
That's a perfect segue to what recommendations for those childcare business owners that are listening to this interview. What are maybe three, I love the number 3, so I always say 3, but what are 3 recommendations that you might have that you gained through this work that you did, or through this evaluation you did? What are 3 recommendations for other childcare providers that actions they might take?
That's a great question. And I think, for childcare providers themselves, I think it's about, really looking for the resources that are going to help them grow as business owners, and not being afraid to access those resources. And I think, I think really the recommendations are for organizations who are supporting child cares to make sure that that information is out there, it's available, it's accessible, that it's when these tools and information modules and trainings are being created and shared, that they're really putting the experience of the child care provider first, and understanding the context in which they're learning about their businesses and how to continue to grow them. It is challenging as a provider when you have kids all day. It's a very active, busy day, to be able to find the time and dedicated space to doing this type of learning. And so one of the things that we saw throughout the evaluation, and we see Civitas continuing to do now, is meeting providers where they are, making sure that the tools are simple, they're to the point, they're straightforward, and that they are things that are going to actually be useful. The other thing is, I think it's really important to remember that providers need funding now more than ever, especially as we see wage increases across the country. Yes, we saw stabilization happening during the stimulus when that funding was available, but into the future, that is going to need to continue in some way, so that the providers can remain stable, that it isn't just, okay, they're stable now, it's over, but it's that continuing effort throughout at least the next year to and beyond.
Absolutely. Latasha, what recommendations would you have for childcare business owners that are listening?
Sure, and I certainly agree with you, Allison. I was just so proud to see the number of childcare business owners interested in and not intimidated by federal tax credits, and seeing those were real dollars coming back their way to make a difference in their businesses, which I'm not sure, right, in the past, if that would be something that a childcare business owner would immediately, go after or say, what, this is for me. So that was just piggyback off of what Allison said. But outside of that, I would say another thing that we stress through Civitas Strategies Early Start is being an informed consumer. Childcare providers really should take ownership and be empowered to ask questions to those professionals that are there to support them, especially those that they're paying for a service like professional tax preparation. Some of the things that we did uncover through the tax analysis were from tax forms that were professionally prepared, but still had some major flaws, and it could be due to their lack of specific knowledge in how childcare businesses operate, but it could be other things as well. But however, we do think if the childcare provider put themselves in the driver's seat and became more informed, they could catch some of those issues in the future, and to be able to advocate for themselves.
I love that. I love that last word that you just said, like really becoming their own advocate. I think that is so important. And I'm sure some people listening to this are also other nonprofit organizations, or work for or run other nonprofit organizations. And we talked a lot about your approach to evaluation. So what recommendations might you have for other nonprofits or other organizations that want to evaluate their own programs?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. And I think it starts with thinking about, what data do you already have? Because many organizations come to us saying, we have all of this data, and it might be in folders, it might be on a computer, but organizations don't know or don't realize how much data they already have about their programming. And so I think a really important place to start, if they would like to do an evaluation, is to think about what data do you have available to you already? How does this data inform your basic logic model for a program? I think that logic models are a great place to start for an evaluation, because it can really help you kind of understand what is the impact that you're trying to achieve and all of the steps along the way of how you can do that. And I think, it's really important for organizations to not underestimate the power of qualitative data, because you have, your numbers that of participants in a program, or you have, impact, but being able to pair that with the experience of the people who are participating in the program, or who are the staff of the program, or might be a board member of the program. I think that's a really important aspect of evaluation, that organizations, they can learn to do that on a regular basis and build that capacity. So that would be my recommendation, is to really look at data you have and think about how to leverage that to communicate impact.
I think that's such an important point. Kind of know what do you want to get out of this? Kind of know what the end result you're looking for. Start there, and then kind of work backwards. Latasha, how about for you? Any other recommendations you would have for organizations?
I think Allison captured it quite well, especially from her vast experience. So
excellent. Great. Well, it was wonderful having both of you here, and I love talking with both of you. If people listening want to get in touch with you or want to learn more about the different programs that you run, how should they go about doing that?
Oh, well, that's a great question. So we do have our website, luminaryeval.com. You can also Google Luminary Evaluation. My contact information is directly on there. Same thing for Civitas Strategies, which does specialize in strategy advisement, strategic planning. Gary Romano, the president and CEO, just launched a new book, Finding Your North Star, which is a wonderful read. So you can find that on civstrat.com, and also Civitas Strategies Early Start that can be accessed through the Civitas website as well. So lots of ways to get in touch.
And we'll make sure all of that is linked to this interview so that people can access that and get in touch with you and with the rest of the team to get help in whatever aspect of their programs they need. So any final words or any parting takeaways that either of you would like to share before we say goodbye?
No, I want to thank you, Megan, for organizing this. It's always a pleasure to talk with you. And Latasha, I really value your partnership in this work and your experience as well. So thank you for this collective experience to be able to share what we do and further the impact.
The same. Thank you, Megan and Allison, for this interview, and I just look forward to continuing the work that we're able to do through Luminary and also Civitas Strategies Early Start.
You are all truly making such an impact in the lives of the people you work with and the lives of the people they work with. And it's really admirable, and I am honored that I get to be a small part of it. So thank you so much for sitting down with me and conducting this interview, and we'll talk soon.
Take care.
Thank you.